South Africa, and largely Southern Africa, is known to be one of the most important centers for human evolution, as 2.5 million years ago, Australopithecines roamed the plains of South Africa. Australopithecus africanus, an extinct species of Australopithecine which lived between 3.3 and 2.1 million years ago in the late Pliocene to early Pleistocene of South Africa. Now, Africanus had a combination of human-like and ape-like features. Like other early hominins, the cheek teeth were enlarged and had thick enamel. Male skulls may have been more robust than female skulls. Males would have averaged around 140 centimeters in height and 40 kilograms in weight, while females averaged 125 centimeters and 30 kilograms. Africanus walked on two legs, yet was less efficient at walking than humans. Its ape-like features, however, consisted of relatively long arms and a strongly sloping face that juts out from underneath the brain case with a pronounced jaw. But its shoulder and hand bones indicate that they were also adapted to climbing. But this feature might have been a non-functional vestige from a more ape-like ancestor. Africanus, unlike most other primates, seems to have survived off eating foods such as grasses, seeds, rhizomes, underground storage organs, or potentially creatures higher up on the food chain. The species seemingly had a highly variable diet. It may have also eaten lower quality, harder foods such as nuts in leaner times. The species also appears to have been patrifocal, with the females more likely to leave the group than the males. Africanus lived in a gallery forest surrounded by more open grasslands or bushlands. Africanus is theorized to have gone extinct due to major climatic variability and volatility, and/or competition with the genus Homo and P. robustus. P. robustus, or Paranthropus robustus rather, is a species of robust Australopithecine from the early and possibly middle Pleistocene of South Africa, inhabiting the land 2.27 to 0.87 million years ago. Robust Australopithecines had an anatomy that consisted of heavily built skulls capable of producing high bite forces, as well as inflated cheek teeth. These Australopithecines possessed an anatomy similar to Africanus. The species seems to have exhibited marked sexual dimorphism, with males being substantially larger and more robust than the females. Males may have been 132 centimeters in height and averaged 40 kilograms in weight, while the females were 110 centimeters with an average weight of 67 pounds. The species seemingly ate C4 savanna plants, fruits, and underground storage organs. It is also possible robustus used tools fashioned from bones to process foods. In terms of robustus society, similar to Africanus, their family structures may have focused on fathers, as adult females seemingly were more likely to leave the groups. Robustus coexisted and competed with predators such as saber-toothed cats, leopards, and hyenas that likely predated on them. However, Africanus was not the only Australopithecine that Robustus coexisted with. Australopithecus sediba, dating to around 1.98 million years ago, inhabited South Africa in the early Pleistocene era. The adults likely stood 150 to 156 centimeters with an estimated weight of 30 to 36 kilograms. Compared to the other Australopithecines, the facial structure of Sediba is strikingly similar to Homo. Sediba possessed a less pronounced brow ridge, cheekbones, and a flatter face. However, similar to the Australopithecines, Sediba seems to have had an ape-like and narrow upper chest, with a broad and human-like lower chest. Sediba was likely capable of a human-like stride, however possessed a gait with a hyperpronation at the ankle, resulting in the leg rotating inward. Sediba's anatomy indicates habitual bipedalism and arboreality. In terms of its diet, Sediba seems to have consumed C3 forest plants like grasses and sedges, fruits, leaves, and bark. From the Australopithecines emerged the genus Homo, of which humans, i.e. Homo sapiens, are the only extant group. The oldest of which, Homo habilis, inhabited South Africa around 2.8 million years ago to 1.65 million. Habilis is said to be responsible for the Oldowan stone tool industry. The Oldowan, or Mode 1, was a widespread stone tool archaeological industry in Habilis coexisted with many other Homo erectus being one of them. Homo erectus, a direct human ancestor considered among the first recognizable members of the genus Homo, inhabited South Africa around 2 million years ago and would migrate out of Africa. Modern in their physical anatomy by ways of a flat face, prominent nose, and possibly sparse body hair coverage. According to brain development, children were largely self-sufficient at birth with limited cognitive development through life. The Acheulean stone tool industry of the Lower Paleolithic era is commonly associated with erectus. This species also might have been the earliest human ancestor to make use of fire. Erectus seemingly exhibited human activities such as hunting and gathering in coordinated groups, caring for injured or sick group members, and possibly seafaring in arts, though rudimentary. Sites show that Erectus operated as an apex predator, consuming animals such as elephants and bovine creatures. The size of these animals would have needed coordinated hunting. Erectus also had reduced sexual dimorphism between females and males, this indicating monogamy. Their heights, although ranged wildly from 146 to 185 centimeters and 40 to 68 kilograms in weight. More recently, around 335,000 to 236,000 years ago, the South African landscape was inhabited by Homo naledi. Standing on average 4 feet 9 inches in height with an average weight of 40 kilograms, Naledi was a small hominin with cognitive complexity similar to humans according to their brain anatomy. Homo naledi was unique in its combination of human and Australopithecine features. Naledi's hands, wrists, and feet are similar to modern humans and Neanderthals. Its small brain, upper body, curved fingers, and hip joints, though, are similar to the human ancestor, Australopithecines. Together, Naledi's anatomy suggests it walked on 2 legs, with a modern gait and an efficient long-distance stride. Its shoulder position and shape of its fingers would have helped it climb and hang from trees. However, these could also be retained from a more ape-like ancestor. The species was built for long-distance travel, but likely was incapable of endurance running. The species may have eaten roots and tubers, seeds and nuts, but hard foods would have had to be processed into smaller pieces before consumption. Its primitive features, despite its young age, would suggest that it's a relic species of the early appearance of Homo. Naledi, however, coexisted with a number of bigger-brained archaic humans, but also our own species, Homo sapiens. The first anatomically modern humans are believed to have originated in Africa. The direct living descendants to the first Homo sapien populations are the southern African peoples of the Khoisan, considered the oldest human population currently living. Their Homo sapien ancestors considered the largest human population for much of prehistoric human history. The Khoisan are the indigenous peoples of southern Africa. The name Khoisan, including the Khoikhoi and the San. The Khoikhoi were a nomadic pastoralist population, while the San, a name given to them by the Khoikhoi, were hunter-gatherers. The current theory is that the ancestor populations of the Khoisan migrated from East or Central Africa into South Africa before 150,000 years ago, possibly earlier. This migration brought about the San. The San were semi-nomadic and moved around seasonally according to the availability of water, game animals, and edible plants. They moved and lived in relatively small bands, and their communities lived under hereditary chiefdoms. Despite this, though, their societies were egalitarian. Women were treated as relative equals, as women could be leaders in their families and play a role in community decision-making. The San economy didn't trade or exchange goods, but rather operated as a gift economy. Pastoralist populations, however, were introduced by the Khoikhoi. The Khoikhoi were herders, and they kept animals such as goats, cattle, and sheep. Like the San, they were nomadic, and they moved around to find enough grazing land for their animals. They moved by carrying their belongings and loading them onto the backs of their animals. Because of this nomadic lifestyle, houses were very light and easy to erect and disassemble. Their animals were considered a sign of wealth. The Khoikhoi only ate cattle that had died or had been stolen. Important occasions were the only time the Khoikhoi slaughtered their own animals. Women in the communities were responsible for gathering wild plants, and the men killed game for everyday food. The Khoikhoi were hunter-gatherer pastoralists. They inhabited South Africa for thousands of years, but from about 2,000 years ago, their domination of sub-Saharan Africa was threatened by the Bantu migration. The Bantu migration is hypothesized to have happened in two waves, 4,000 and 2,000 years ago. The expansion would reach South Africa possibly as early as AD 300. The Bantu-speaking peoples migrated from the Congo Basin and would decimate the hunter-gatherer populations in sub-Saharan Africa. These Bantu speakers were herders and had domestic animals. They were agriculturists, farming millet and sorghum, etc. They also brought to southern Africa skill in working with iron. These Bantu-speaking populations would split into the Nguni, the Sotho-Tswana, the Venda, Lembe, and Tsonga people, which would inhabit various areas of South Africa. These African cultures had hierarchies of authorities within kingdoms. Villages and regions were ruled through hereditary chiefdoms. Although could be replaced due to ineffectiveness, they had much more power and authority over their subjects than Khoisan chiefs. Similar to the Khoikhoi, though, cattle were symbols of wealth and were used as dowry payments and offerings to ancestors. Social power was built through control over the labor of kin groups and dependents. Trade between regions was a part of the Bantu economy, with the skill in metalworking, among others, resulting in the specialization of products. Bantu were not nomadic and therefore settled in homesteads and villages. They would grow to be inhabited by thousands. This, in conjunction with trade, would lead to the formation of more complex societies, economies, and political structures. However, the development of these Bantu societies and the way of life of the still surviving Khoisan cultures would soon come under threat from a looming presence, which would begin its invasion from the Western Cape of South Africa.